All right, here we are. We're excited to present some ideas for the coming year that relate to the Northwest Permaculture Convergence next year, next October, possibly being held at Rememberland. And let's go around and let's each of us introduce ourselves and what organizations we're connected to. Mark, do you want to get started?
Sure. I'm Mark Lakeman with the CityRepair project and the Village Building Convergence, and been involved in both of those since their inception, and still very much involved and excited for so many things that the core group has been hatching in our imaginings for the last few months, and I'm really excited to talk with you all here today, especially about how a lot of the momentum of what we're going to be doing in the coming year can potentially arrive at Rememberland during the Northwest Permaculture Convergence and bring lots of participants and inspiration to that gathering.
Okay. My name is Elliot Rasnick. I'm representing all the organizations currently in the hybrid organizational ecosystem that is running programs out on Bell's Mountain. So both the nonprofit that we've been calling Rememberland, and then also beloved Emergence that is managing programming. And just to clarify, the name of the nonprofit which owns the land is Rememberland, but we're not intending for that to be a place name. So if we use a place name today, a more appropriate place name might be Bell's Mountain, which is itself a placeholder until we all hear the name of the land, from the land.
Shaylee.
Hi, I'm Shaylee Evans. I'm the president of Northwest Permaculture Convergence, and I've been serving on that board since 2016. I'm a tea farmer from Sequim, Washington, and I'm grateful to have been in this community and on the board for a while, and we're in a place of putting a lot of intention into our organizational structure and our succession, and how as a nonprofit we can lean into our principles and our belief systems to have a lot of organizational integrity and succession that's going to be healing and restoring to us and to our community and to everybody that Northwest Permaculture Convergence works with. And I'm excited to be a part of that and to be inviting people in to be developing that model with us this next year, and while we work with you guys on this awesome opportunity to bring all the people who are in this together and bring more awareness to this movement, and more stoke on the hope that's in the world instead of fear on how bad it is. And I'm really glad that we're getting together to be a light.
Yeah. And my name is Julie Wolf, and I'm in my third year of learning to be an ally on the board of the Northwest Permaculture Convergence organization, helping community connect and become collectively conscious of itself. We will get into each of our, well, let me just say that my sense of what we're going to discuss here together is, first of all, it has the intention to share our collaboration ideas with each other and with our communities, as an invitation to participate in all of these organizations' activities. I'm looking forward to hearing Mark and Elliot and Shaylee talk about each organization's hopes and plans for 2023 and then how we can, and into the future, and how we can collaborate together to invite and support something amazing to happen in the fall of 2023 at Bells Mountain, to bring our communities together for a more regenerative way of life on Earth and in community. And yeah, now, a fall convergence gathering to include land regeneration, village. This is what I'm assuming is going to be happening, a fall convergence gathering to include land regeneration, village building, and that village building being both physical infrastructure and land regeneration, and for building relational community. Yeah, so Mark, will you start us off with your vision of going into the future?
Sure. Gosh, what a wonderful question to be asked. Thank you. Yes. So everything we do in our work in the nonprofit of CityRepair, and also in the work that I do separately in the Office of Communitecture, Architecture, and Planning, pretty much everything is in the service of a better world, and we're permaculture informed in all those initiatives, and mostly urban focused. So that's the kind of energy and the alchemy that we're working with, and in the coming year, with a lot of momentum going into it. We're in an interesting position that we've just come through some really great, some very difficult times internally, and I think our difficulties have been simply a microcosm or a mirror of tensions going on in the country. So for those of us who remain kind of connected and unified, we've been really tempered and tested, but are stronger now. At the same time, what is surprising about us is that we could easily be looking at the fact that our numbers and kind of energies have been somewhat reduced and say, well, let's be less ambitious and just work with what we have. But amazingly, this group of mostly women over 50 have said, to hell with that. We're going to go bigger and better than ever. And I've been waiting for a long time to hear people be that, I don't know, it's like brash, foolish, but they're filled with love. And basically they're an embodiment of what you were just asking about, Julie. Like, let's hear about it. Like, they're here to heal the world, and they're not going to stop till their dying breath kind of people. So that's who we have in the core of CityRepair. And the agenda that we've set up, yeah, it starts off from where we are, but it builds and builds and builds in strength and momentum until all of this energy arrives in a gigantic, gleaming, glowing cloud, luminous cloud of dust at Bells Mountain for the Northwest Permaculture Convergence. So, I mean, as obviously we're talking about linking. We're talking about linking to everybody who's still standing out there in a way that becomes a mycelial web that other people can kind of hold on to and jump onto to join with the nodes of the things that are happening. So specifically, we are, tomorrow night, we're just to build all this momentum. We're starting by building our capacity with a great volunteer gathering happening tomorrow night in Southeast Portland. And so out of that, we will have a sense of who's going to populate the different dimensions of our work that we know are ongoing, including the village building convergence. Tomorrow night, we'll be releasing our request for proposals. So everyone who comes to the gathering will be carrying one of these RFP forms that they can fill out themselves. But the point of the gathering tomorrow night isn't so much about the projects that are happening outwardly. We know we'll get at least 70 proposals for projects to happen all over the city during the village building convergence itself. But what we're doing tomorrow is the core team that will help to enact all of that. And then we'll, with whatever group of people we start off with, we know that we will attract more and more and more people. And part of what's going to help that be bigger and better than ever is that we've refurbished our mobile gathering place. It's rather famous and beloved, called the Tea Horse. And it's this gigantic bamboo winged butterfly that serves free desserts and drinks and goes all over the city, giving out free chocolate cake. People come to it, they sit on Persian rugs and pillows, and they connect with their neighbors or whoever else has come from across the city to the event. And the Tea Horse is going to launch and be all over the city at least once a week. It's going to be in a place on a schedule where everyone can see what's happening. So people will be coming to visit it. And at that location, we will be teaching, we'll be doing all kinds of workshops. People will be making public announcements. All this information will be available. So we're going to see crowds larger than ever, especially coming out of COVID. People will be wanting to connect with other people. They're wanting to figure out how they can help. They all know that the hour is late with respect to the challenges to our entire society and to the planet. So we're going to try to be a catalyst for connecting people into all of the multiplicity of dimensions of common cause that are really facing us now. And we're going to be broadcasting very clearly that the opportunity we face, like this is the moment where the light is shining brightest. The moment has come. And now we can see each other. And so, reaching out, networking, asking for help, getting more and more people involved is the point. So the RFP will have been released. We'll be engaging all these different volunteer activities. All these interns are already stepping forward to help us make these things happen. And we're going to start our trainings and our workshops, teaching about permaculture, public speaking, fundraising, conflict resolution, ecological design, all these things that we already do toward the village building convergence. All of that will be happening toward the convergence, which is June 10th through 17th. And the Tea Horse will be out there at the same time doing these things and just getting more and more people involved. And then finally, when the convergence happens, it'll be this spectacular simultaneous implementation all over the city where people will be, they'll already know what each other are doing because the trainings involve people coming from all over the city to hear each other and assist each other as their projects all are becoming prepared for implementation. So these are going to be permaculture in the form that you're used to it, and also expressions of permaculture you've never even imagined before, which is what we see every year. These fusions of social architecture, innovation with urban placemaking, where permaculture that you might expect to happen on the private side of a boundary suddenly is happening in a strategic way out in public space. So imagine, of course, entire streets becoming, snack tracks or pollinator corridors or what have you. So everything becomes a demonstration project, and that's what really all of these projects are. It's like dozens and dozens of demonstration projects that are permanent infrastructure going in at once. So the thing is, we're not stopping. That's the big dream. The village building convergence is going on for the rest of the year. And at this point, we're about to declare 2023 an entire Shabbat year. Like, to heck with just a dinner and a state of being for a period of time. What we're talking about is, like, we're going to declare it that and ask everyone to declare it on their own terms. And then going into the coming year, being different, treating people differently, engaging differently, and inhabiting our birthright, which is that, damn it, the dream of peace is where I stand, wherever I go, kind of idea. So the Tea Horse will continue all the way and arrive at the permaculture convergence whenever it is that it's being scheduled. And all the projects that are now happening independently that we alone are involved with will be happening all over the summer, but more than we've ever seen. And then we want to connect with the convergence community and all other allied organizations with the things that they're scheduling. So we get it onto a calendar where everyone goes and they can see, like, whatever we're going to call it, like Impact Summer or something, whatever we might call it, everyone can see that they're connected to this thing, which is creating a wave of momentum. And we hope to bring that wave to Bell's Mountain and have everything be ready for us when we get there. So hundreds more participants, if not thousands more participants. So that's the idea, and we know it's going to happen to some pretty massive extent. So I'll pause. I see a question from you, Julie, about building a core team
Yeah.
in order to facilitate. You mean for the convergence itself?
Well, yeah, it's like you're having an evening and we're like having a whole weekend retreat. And yeah, so it just that bubbled up. It's like, I wonder what that looks like. And maybe I'm just shy and not those, I'm not one of those confident over 50 women yet, but I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fine.
to look what it would look like to like call forward a core team to be a part of Northwest Permaculture Convergence.
Julie, you just did that.
Oh.
That's what's happening this weekend.
Now the universe has heard, so I think it's happening. But that actually is like, that's part of what we'll be announcing and calling for. We didn't plan on that tomorrow night, but that's part of what the T-Horse will be doing.
Okay.
So to create a network to help produce the event. And of course, on one end, there's going to be Bell's Mountain doing things to get ready for it to come.
Right.
And then CityRepair can do stuff from our end. So yeah, we can be calling for people. And toward what you just said, we're going to be having a dinner of dozens of regional permaculture leaders within a couple of months' time. And surely the convergence will be part of what we talk about. But we're trying to bring dozens of people together to have a dinner. It's very open-ended, no obligation, but it's really towards creating synergy and implementations. So that we can certainly call for that.
Amazing, exciting. I'm so glad I'm already a part of it. And with all of you and everyone, our mycelial network is in relationship with human and non-human. Yeah, so is there anything Elliot or Shayla, you want to respond to Mark, and then we'll first, and then we can go on to Elliot's vision of the future.
Did I just had I'm just really thrilled about what you're doing, and it's so timely. I think I could see it, like, we need to have a tidal wave of good work, break the levees that are supporting all the structures of our dominant world right now that are so oppressive, and just activating people. Like what you're doing is going to activate me to apply things in my rural part of the world and to try to share that with other rural communities. And it's an important thing. And that's all. I'm to be advocating with this organization and all of its reach to help be a light, to draw people together, so we're encouraged and inspired and more educated and empowered to be doing good work. So that's all. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I can't tell you how meaningful it is to me to be exposed to your unwillingness to indulge the temptation to allow fear of collapse to cause personal collapse. And so that's what feels so inspiring, the demand that we will build the village of life through the cracks of the city of death, and we will not allow ourselves to indulge the temptation for personal collapse to result from our fear of global collapse. So thank you. It's inspiring. It's exciting. It's what I need. I need the constant reminders. Thank you.
I need to have lunch with you again soon.
Yes.
As
much as possible.
Yeah. Well, so Elliot, you must already have, especially after having an event this weekend, you must have some thoughts already about the idea of a substantial number of people coming to the land, where they will camp, how they will have their needs met, what facilities would be required, but hopefully you are developing a sense of like what they can do to engage while they're there to be of benefit to Bell's Mountain.
That's right. Well, absolutely. So we have some time before we really understand what is the healthy and safe carrying capacity for the land. And so what could that number be in any one place? We know that we have already built an unbelievable event facility that could host several hundred people, could feed several hundred people in an extraordinary way, and create an inspiring place for us to gather. We know, and we know that that facility enables us to model resilient systems as we prepare food. It enables us to capture all of our poop and pee and continue to use it on site. And it would give us multiple facilities to teach and learn together. We also know of the dozen or so restoration projects we have on site that are in the planning stage. There are 3 restoration projects that are already in the implementation stage. And by 1 year from now, or roughly 1 year from now, all 3 of those projects will require a lot of work. And those projects include the world's first ever riparian restoration project using soil made from human bodies. And we know that the arrival of compost is increasing every month, the rate of arrival of compost, and that we expect to be welcoming 40 or more people in the form of soil every month by early next year. And so we know that there's a tremendous amount of material that we can use to help build soil throughout the site. And my hope would be that most of the energy that comes onto the site would be serving one or more of these restoration projects that are currently being implemented. And I expect at least one additional restoration project to be in the implementation stage by next year. So I think that's one of the reasons that I'm so excited for us to focus on restoration as the model, as the activity that we would engage, is I think we have no lack of people who are inspired to serve the earth, and the opportunity to do that so literally as identify a place where there has been harm caused in this little blip of the last 150 years of human relationship with the land. The blip is especially short here, here on the land at Bell's Mountain. Just 150 years of incredible damage. And so we have this opportunity to understand how that damage was caused, to identify how to heal that damage, and then to literally use our hands to participate in the restoration work. So I'd imagine a lot of our work together could be participating in some of those restoration projects, in particular, some of these first ever restoration projects using soil made from human bodies. But one of the things that we've learned is that restoration at this scale takes a tremendous amount of work. So we've had almost 25 people working roughly full time on just the earliest restoration projects that we've begun. So we've been doing restoration, just one restoration project each, on roughly 33 acres. And that's just where we're starting. And this takes the equivalent of over 25 people working full time for over 6 months. And in order to power that restoration in a way that brings people into greater proximity with the food systems they depend on, we need to be developing many more regenerative agriculture projects to feed everyone. And so I'm also imagining that the opportunity of bringing all of the, this explosion of enthusiasm for permaculture projects will give us an opportunity to focus on building out more and more food systems to feed the people who continue to do restoration projects on site.
Question? Well, first of all, if I was in a cartoon right now, my hair would be back like this and my eyes would be bulging out. But that's incredible, Elliot. Thank you. It's even more exciting than ever to think about what all's going to happen next October there. Okay, so thinking about the kinds of things that permaculturists are excited about to demonstrate, to teach, and learn about during such an event as the Convergence. I'm visualizing as you're talking that we have people out, with yourself and others talking about your human composting initiative on the site. There probably would be some amount of ritual and ceremony related to the Convergence itself, but especially to the fact that you're working with material that has kind of a deeper layer than just biological considerations. And so, yeah, I see a lot of potential content there, but you're also talking about food systems. Are you able to grow food in the human composting that's coming to the site?
Well, so one of the commitments that we've made to the people who are generously donating their soil is that the soil is being used in restoration projects, and so I want to fulfill that commitment. So legally, we don't have exactly an obligation, but energetically, we have an obligation to the people who are making that generous offer that we're using that soil in restoration projects.
Okay, so can you say a bit more about your thoughts about food systems then on the site? How could the participants at the Convergence be engaged to help develop those? Like, for instance, we're going into winter time, and so one would think of winter gardens, for instance.
Thank you. That's right. I think there are a lot of opportunities. So on the one hand, there's observing and considering what interventions might be required for water flow, and how that might relate to more productive agricultural systems in future years. So that's one thought, is maybe there's a track where we're just developing a suite of observations about how water is moving, and either and using those observations to help us plan what future interventions there might be about how water is moving on the land. I think there's also opportunities to facilitate interventions with large groups where we've already identified, where we've already been observing for 4 years. It'll be well over 5 years by next year. So there may be some opportunities to intervene and to think about how water is moving through the site. So that's one thought. And I expect by that time there will have been a lot of collaborative design opportunities for future food systems, and there might be planting or site prep for various perennial or other gardens, in addition to gardens just for next winter. But I'm imagining a lot of the opportunities to connect with food systems might be a little bit more long term.
Don't let me take up all the questioning space, but I do have more. Okay, so
in regards to food systems, walking around the land, I see I would like to keep building our relationship of our organizations helping with the orchard and the garden space. And I think one of the things we can bring, and that I'm very passionate about food systems and working with you and our framework to help make more food happen there. And I wonder if if the folks might be down to have some of that soil, if it's safe to be put into food systems, because that's restoring the topsoil. And you know, our food system's super broken. So working on that is in my framework a restoration project too. So that's all I want to pipe in.
Let's see, I'm off. Okay. Am I I need to ask, when you're saying a restoration project, does that preclude growing food? I think everyone here must understand you more than I do. I mean, are the restoration projects not where we're growing food, or do they include that?
Well, we certainly might, because let's see, we certainly might understand that some of the restoration. So our restoration work right now, it's focused on understanding what harm has been caused over the last 150 years, and then thinking, what do we do to repair that harm? And so some of those interventions that result in repair of the harm might also include planting systems that will also result in harvestable food. That might happen. But the reality is, because it takes so much work to be doing the restoration, we actually understand that in some of the areas we can simultaneously be building soil, increasing the diversity of plants in those places, and using those interventions to generate food that the people who are doing the work of the restoration on other areas where they're maybe a little bit closer to ecological health. So if that makes sense. So the idea is that there are areas where so much damage has been done, whether it's areas where overgrazing and compaction has been so severe that the intervention to restore ecological health would most efficiently be, well, let's design food systems here so that we can build the soil and increase plant diversity. And in that place, we'll grow food that will feed the people who are doing restoration in the areas that are slightly more ecologically intact, but where some damage has been done, if that makes sense. And certainly there are abundant, there are a lot of places that fit into each category, where there's incredible southwest facing slopes, where there's a lot of water nearby, where where we have great opportunities to be growing food, but where that's kind of the great first move to return ecological health. And there are lots of areas where we can identify modest harm in forests that were areas that were cleared but never replanted, or areas where cultural burns had retained particular ecological systems for for over 10,000 years, where the absence of those burns have distorted those systems. So there's opportunities for us to intervene and do restoration that might be look a little bit different than the food systems. And we also know that the boundary between that when human relationships with land are healthy, the boundary between what looks like gardening and what looks like restoration isn't as severe as we pretend it is.
Right,
So-
like we should also be using the term growing medicine, and
Thank you.
what grows around what might not be considered a garden, for example. But anyway, yes, Mark.
Oh, well, that just makes me, that even deepens my thought there, that obviously when we're talking about native food systems, they're really the same. And you've just had a workshop on the land focused on camas restoration. And so Camas and Wapato are not exactly activated foods for everyone living in this region, but nonetheless, they're obviously an obligation that the occupying culture has right now to restore those systems, and in the case of Bell's Mountain, to be a model for that restoration. And in those two cases especially, doing habitat restoration that is also a food system gets to happen simultaneously.
That's right. Yeah, and I guess when we talk specifically about the Camas Prairie and oak restoration, we understand that particularly that restoration work is designed, led, and fulfilled through the Center for Indigenous Healing, which of which we just hosted the first event, and which will soon be operating year-round, guiding the Camas and oak restoration. And I think we have some incredible opportunities next year to do work that might support and serve the future work that happens in the Center for Indigenous Healing, where trauma healing for Native youth and adults is connected with restoration of cultural ecological systems like the Camas Prairie and oak savanna. And I imagine that a lot of us will be really excited to be doing work that supports the work of that happens through the Center for Indigenous Healing.
So just thinking ahead about the Convergence schedule, it seems like these would be really big featured events during which, I mean, whatever would be happening, where we ask people to bring a shovel with them to the Convergence, or some tools, or wheelbarrows, what have you, that that we set up these kind of core, great events where it's really a plenary and there's nothing else happening during those periods of like some huge barn raising kind of push. So you get to kind of think about how you would be able to utilize those people, what kind of introductory lessons, whoever would need to deliver those things. Probably you would be the person or somebody very involved, but would be prepared to really break it down for people and be able to answer questions, and then we enact it together, and have this tremendous feeling of a great cumulative impact all together after a period of an hour or two.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really so. I think we'll know over the next few months more about what exact kinds of activities that might be. And I love that notion that maybe there are some like the plenary restoration or impact activities where everyone's all working together. And actually, so just like we understand that the separation between ecosystem restoration and agriculture in the way that we want to practice each of them is not a strict boundary. We also understand that the separation between ritual and work is not a strict boundary in the way that we want to practice them. And so I can imagine opportunities in these like plenary sessions where what we're doing is fundamentally ritual work, where we're connecting healing for ourselves in a somatic way with healing of the earth, and where we're making what we see visible in a much more clear way. What our vision for the world is being put into that place, into our bodies, and into the world in a clear way. So I'm really excited about that idea of like the moments that we're all working together and we can see each other and we're singing and there's this extraordinary thing that happens, and that then we're moving around and breaking out and working in more intimate spaces with smaller groups and having incredible experiences just with smaller groups, and deeper and stronger impacts and learnings about specific models for restoration or specific models for agriculture, something like that.
Oh, fantastic.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's so fantastic when we get together and we get to see the impact of all of us investing in a project, for the goal of inspiring people and letting us make more friends in community with folks that are doing the work, and to feel like it's possible. I think everyone who comes, knowing just even what our intentions are, will not be able to help but change the town that they came from, because of the belief that will be born that when we get together, we can actually make an impact on the landscape that can be restoring, that maybe can yield more food for all of us, or, a healthier sense of community, or a way to engage with our neighbors. And it's just great. Yay. I've like cried when both of you have been talking so far. So thank you.
Oh, wonderful.
Do
Well-
we want to define how much longer we're going? Because it is.
Oh, wow.
And I just wanted to say, Elliot, I really believe in this work that you're doing, and Mark, that you're doing, and our capacity as an organization to help, and me personally, and my zeal and experience with my leather hands doing stuff with the soil and food. And I'm only 4 hours away, and I'm down to try to come down more. And I'm inspired about the nut fruit orchard in particularly, and have a whole lot of ideas and notions on how that could be a really productive space, and just other things. So what I can add to the conversation and planning and setting up stuff to get more folks and hands and ideas involved in making that a great space. I think it would be wonderful to orient some of our programming and even the work the next year to invite designers and different people with experience to just engage and have some of the projects maybe midway, or some aspects planned, so that we can be really effective in a moment of maybe completion and celebration or transition with areas. And in other spots, have places where we get to dream together and then vision something that'll happen in the future. Like all those different, it's like, like succession. There's things at different points of the process that people can engage in to experience some of the joy and some of the uncertainty and some of the planning. And then we can take those lessons and have that, those different spaces. So I'm in over the winter and year with you on the landscape, if it would help. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm thinking that, you obviously are going to want to take people around the site. You're going to want to sort of tour a bunch of what's already happened. You probably want to give a presentation on the vision, and also the evolution, the convolution of kind of getting to next October. Who knows what's going to happen between now and then. Also, aren't you building some cottages or something? Are you using straw clay in that case? Like, is there something that people could get their hands on in terms of some resilient or sustainable aspect to the infrastructure building that you're doing of that nature?
And so without question, I mean, we have so many opportunities to build with materials harvested from the site, and I don't know exactly where we'll be at that time, but I imagine that in the way that we have our plenary ritual restoration session that then breaks out into lots of opportunities for people to connect, I imagine that there might be opportunities for people to learn and participate in lots of exciting ways of building with nature. And I just don't know exactly what project will be where next year, but I think there'll be lots of exciting opportunities. And I guess the other thing I want to say is that maybe some of the folks who are, because what's happening, this thing is being recorded, this conversation is being recorded, and then and then will be shown to some folks. And maybe some of the folks who are watching this have skills or experience and want to have opportunities to reach out and say, hey, here's this thing I know how to do, and I'd like to come and spend time on the land, observing the land, and then help participate in creating a design that then I could lead implementation of next September or October. And so maybe that's part of the result of this conversation.
Okay. Well, since I'm listening to you, I'll say that I'm happy to, there's one presentation I think that I could contribute, which relates directly to Bell's Mountain, and that is, remember that we started off looking at potentially having to we were dealing with a whole lot of different zones and different kinds of configurations of property lines, and none of them, of course, corresponding to the landform or anything like that. And so we were faced with the idea of potentially sort of erasing those things and trying to kind of see the land holistically, and where we ended up. And now this isn't necessarily the state of your thinking, but I think it would be very helpful to people who are passionate about permaculture design to receive a presentation that helps them understand better how to work creatively with existing constraints that are usually not understood enough to even engage. So like in the end, or at least when last we touched on this master planning process, we ended up figuring out a way to work with all of the different zones as they are, with the property lines as they are, and actually be able to create these clusters of village, agrihood sort of villages, working with the existing entitlements. So part of the presentation would be to help people understand how to find those entitlements per zone and then engage them and understand that they're not necessarily representing the limits that you think they are on the surface level, but actually that there are ways to transcend them or to reinterpret them into what ultimately we were, where we left the master plan as it sits now. So I could give a presentation on that would be pretty accessible. So that would just be another sort of piece I could offer.
Exciting.
The one thing that, so you want me to share the screen? The one thing I didn't get
screen
was,
share.
and maybe it'll just come out of me. I was thinking it would come out of Elliot, but that when Shaylee and I were there, and then I'll share the screen here. When Shaylee and I visited Bell Mountain and spent the whole day walking the land with Elliot, there were moments that were amazing to just sit in an Oak Savannah chemist field and hear about the stories of how this all came to be, and even over there near the big arch that was once supposed to be an entrance, hearing the story of your your surprise at receiving the vision of looking for a piece of land to do this work on was so fulfilling. It was so inspiring. And it sounds to me, if I can sort of be a filter here of what I'm hearing, that the primary goal is to make up to the damage, to apologize and do something about the privilege that we've had and the damage that's been done to the earth and specifically to this land. And that around that it's not primarily about humans, which is like taking me a while to shift to, that it's primarily about life and nature and the way nature works, and that you have certainly in mind how to feed the humans that will make that restoration happen there, and the infrastructures, the housing, the yeah, all the human building infrastructure to support the humans. But the primary aim of this project is, Elliot, you want to answer that?
Oh, thank you. So what you're getting to is that we are always putting at the center is restoration. That's always at the center. And if there are people who live on the land, it's not because they're the small number of people who thought that we might be safer if we were there during collapse. And so we're just trying to make a safe place for a few people to be as the world crumbles. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we're asking what is needed to give back, what is needed to heal the harm that has been done. And that's what's always at the center, not demonstrating what it would look like for a few of us to live together safely.
Right. A few of us to live in harmony with nature and community, but for what it would look like for the diversity of life, including humans, to live in harmony with nature.
And the exciting thing that does is that it shows us that we are needed.
Mm. Yes. Yay. We're not useless. We can actually do some good things here on this earth. That's great. Well, the outline, feel free, anybody jump in. I'll go ahead and share.
To me, it sounds like we've sketched out some exciting ideas. We talked about the possibility. We heard Mark's exciting the exciting way that CityRepair is rolling out this new impact, and we kind of get to think about how we all participate in that and how it also might culminate in this extraordinary opportunity. And we'll learn more over the coming months about how many of us at any one time the land can really hold. And we'll, once we understand that, we'll learn more about the scale and scope of what we do, and learn more about whether or not maybe some music and dancing are involved somewhere, which I think we all hope they are. But that's not up to us. We'll really listen and let the land decide how that happens.
I think we lost Shaylee. Were you done, or should I keep sharing that?
Actually, I think we need to be looking at the other document that you flashed at first. I've got it open too, in case you want me to share it.
Did I not screen one? Yeah, you can. This is the outline that you sent in an email, but
that one.
Yeah, you can. Is it this?
It was the one that just flashed initially before this.
Huh. I don't know what it is.
Okay, how about if I do it, because I've got it
Yeah,
up right
go
there.
ahead.
Okay. I think it's this. Okay, so yeah, I think Shaylee was wanting to see this, and
Oh,
gosh, come on now, come back. What has happened?
huh.
Oh. Well, we don't need to see that, whatever that is. Sorry. We had it for a moment. There we go. All right. So this is just an outline that was to organize our thoughts and start to get people excited, that I sent to you. And it lays out some of the preparatory activities which last through next spring, through this autumn and next spring, as we build our momentum toward the village building convergence in the beginning of June. And so that's basic VBC model number 1 there. And then the second piece is the T-Horse event schedule that will be doing these community gathering events all over the city. The third piece is many different projects happening in different communities.
So
a
number
lot
one, the J means June, Saturday, June 10th to Saturday, June 17th. Is that what I'm seeing on that line?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the big convergence. And really that's only the event dates. The convergence itself, the process of the communities doing design and fundraising and coordination, really it's important to see that an event is so much more that leads to it and then that comes from it. And so those 8 days of the convergence are really just when things are all kind of happening simultaneously. But then after that, we have all these other things scheduled to happen as independent events through the summer. And then we'll be juicing that up with our mobile gathering place that will be traveling all over the city. And then we want to coordinate with the permaculture community to put their projects, their events, their speaking events, their projects, implementations, to get those onto a calendar together. And then obviously that would include things at Bell's Mountain where you would want some outreach. And then there may be more projects that the City Repair project itself wants to initiate, and then things come to the permaculture convergence. And I think we may want to have some kind of plan for what to do with all of that energy. Once people arrive on the land, they're going to be asking, how could we remain engaged? So we should have some answers to questions like that.
How exciting.
I'm gonna stop sharing.
I'm looking at
Yeah.
the time and I'm aware that I'm gonna have to get off the call really soon. I want to acknowledge that I'd be enthusiastic to to continue to imagine how we build an event in September or October in a way that inspires participants to continue to stay engaged, both in those projects there on the land and in other projects that might have preceded it. And maybe that's part of the way that other allied groups get to use the event in September as more of an, as another opportunity, like that we're doing a better job of weaving them all together. I'm also curious if there might be opportunities in Portland that might make sense if Beloved Presents is going to do events during that time frame. Maybe it makes sense for Beloved to also host something that's affiliated at some point in between June and October, or maybe between now and June of 2023.
Yeah,
You
very
mean
excited.
on Bill's Mountain, right?
No, I actually mean in Portland.
Oh, okay. You do.
I expect that we don't imagine, and I mean, maybe there are design charrettes that folks are invited to before September that
Mhm.
where we're designing together what might be installed, or what we might work on directly in September or October.
I like that idea.
Well, I'm so grateful. I'm sorry I have to end abruptly. I'm really excited about this conversation. I'm really grateful to be included, and I'm really looking forward to more. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Towards more, I think we should get back in touch with each other soon,
Yes, please.
because we'll all have further thoughts. So you'll be developing your thoughts, and I think it would be great for Julie, you and Shaylee to bring kind of a schedule outline that we can start to populate. And I'll have learned a lot more after tomorrow night about what we're up to. So I look forward to talking with you guys again soon.
Amazing.
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming, and we'll continue this conversation.
Okay.